things that have had your health in mind when they've been designed look too clinical, and the things that have only been designed to be beautiful have never considered my health. It's modern luxury's job to make you feel good, and I think the things that make us feel good have changed a little bit.
How would a modern high performer feel good?
The modern high performer is trying to squeeze the best out of every element of their life.
And what is coming next?
Wellness and wellbeing has infiltrated every industry. There is a consumer out there who now prioritises not only today's performance, but tomorrow's future health. What is also fascinating is the way that well-being and wellness and health and fitness have permeated many different industries, from hospitality to tech to every element of luxury.
Just take a look at, let's say, the intangible luxury from the point of Pillar Wellbeing. How would you define it?
Wellness is the new luxury. I guess the journey has to start at the beginning. I think, the beginning of my career was definitely, considering we're in a place of learning, was definitely from a place of learning. So I did not go to La Roche. I went to Liverpool University and studied something completely different. I studied sports science and psychology, and I did that as a combined honours degree. So from very early on, an incredible personal fascination with how the mind and the body work in tandem with each other to produce a performance. Now that performance could be an athletic one, could be a business one, it could be a life performance in any sphere. So I was always fascinated by human performance, and I came, as I tell people, a bit of a failed athlete. I would have loved to have been an athlete. I played every sport under the sun, all of them quite well, none of them exceptionally well, and I guess the natural progression for me was coaching. And so I came through my degree, came back to London, where I'm from, and started a coaching career. And all of the learnings from elite level sport and physical and mental performance, I applied that to executive coaching. So I looked at senior executives like athletes. Had an amazing client, for example, who used to be the CEO of EasyJet, and she grew that business into the largest airline in Europe. But she has to perform under huge amounts of stress and pressure. And I'm talking about things that are now a bit more commonplace in the wellness industry. But back then, people weren't looking at sleep, at stress, at the gut, at your immune system, at your interpersonal relationships. She didn't necessarily have a pre-performance routine that an athlete would use, and use that before she got on stage to give a big speech. And that's just one example. I worked with the senior partners of McKinsey and was at Chelsea Football Club for 10 years with the senior executive there, and had Twitter in New York before it became X as a corporate client, working with their senior leadership teams, and Apple and Nike and other amazing businesses. So my journey was to take the learnings from elite sport and performance and move that into executive health and performance, whether that was with a C-suite executive or with an entrepreneur. And the commonalities that I saw through that whole sort of period of time of coaching was the really successful ones could deal with and cope with stress in an incredible way. And, I'm sure we'll go on to talk about how I integrated that into hospitality and lots of other things, but the core fundamental of it all was strong leadership, executive performance, founded in the learnings of professional sport. And I take this brilliant quote from the old England rugby team manager, Clive Woodward, who had great success in professional sport and great success in business. He said, high-level sport is about getting results out of people. High-level business is about getting results out of people. And I was really lucky to work with some people who were very good at getting the best out of themselves, but also great about getting the results out of the people who followed them.
Whether we speak about top athletes or about senior executives, it seems that what they have in common are the results as well as people, right? Who they should lead and influence so that all together we reach those results. Where or what, more precisely, is the role of wellness there?
I think it is probably the core and most key fundamental of good leadership is having the mindset, the energy, the physical, mental and emotional ability to be able to lead those people. And I don't think there's a stronger form of leadership than that form of leading by example. And so I think, we've seen people create amazing high performance cultures, and, we've been talking a lot about the hospitality industry today because of the setting that I'm in.
Yeah.
But I think the hospitality industry has had to evolve into one of taking better care of its community's well-being. The mindset of that modern high performer has changed over the last 2 decades. And let's use sleep as an example. Sleep is the key fundamental core pillar of all recovery. And people used to be proud of how little they slept. And now the badge of honor is your Whoop score rather than your lack of sleep. So that key element of well-being and that metric of well-being and recovery has changed. Hospitality industry sells sleep for a living if it's a hotel. And we're now seeing people design bedrooms to get good night's sleep where that would have never happened. And, I've told the story before, but I went to the luxury travel conference in Cannes maybe 6 years ago and spoke to 200 hoteliers and GMs of hotels, and I said, you guys sell sleep for a living, you sell bedrooms, but none of you ever designed the space to get a good night's sleep. What would you pay for a good night's sleep? And they all traveled for work and had young children, and it was like a light bulb moment. So slight deviation from the original question, but good leadership and prioritizing one's individual wellness and the wellness of your team, I think, is a real core fundamental. But I think what is also fascinating is the way that well-being and wellness and health and fitness have permeated many different industries, from hospitality to tech to every element of luxury and beyond. I think that, and I would say this because I'm slightly biased, but it's been said before, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So that has to be the starting point and the key fundamental, I think.
Yeah. What you have just said reminds me of that metaphor of using an oxygen mask in the airplane, right? So
put your own one on first, right? Fit your own one first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because if we do not do that, then how can we be of service to anyone? And speaking of so you mentioned, we started talking a little bit about mindset. What do you think that are other pillars of well-being apart from mindset? And I didn't use that.
It's a loaded
word by
question
accident,
because
yeah.
I founded a business, went on to found a business called Pillar, and it is named Pillar because of the key fundamental principles or pillars of well-being that we identified, that are movement, recovery, and nutrition. I think for a long time people have understood movement and nutrition, especially from the world of fitness and sport. You've been an athlete yourself. You understood how much you needed to train. You understood what you needed to eat to fuel your body and prepare for physical activity. Recovery has been poorly understood for a long time, and we wanted to really integrate recovery. But not only did we want movement, recovery, and nutrition, gym, spa, restaurant. If you have all of those things, you have a beautiful private members club. But to not put lopsided weight on any one of those three pillars, to give them equal emphasis, and to understand that if you don't recover harder than you train, it's very difficult to perform at a high level consistently for a long period of time. And recovery has been the most integrated badly I've seen over the last 50 years in hospitality. Spa has been a very product-led environment where I can get a massage or a pedicure, but I haven't necessarily been able to mentally, physically, or emotionally restore energy. Now we've seen contrast therapy and cold plunge and infrared saunas and physiotherapy and compression and massage guns, and now we're seeing the rise of mindfulness and meditation and visualization, and all of those things are vitally important. But we at Pillar wanted to be the first people to integrate all three of those elements into a brilliant private health club setting within a luxury hospitality setting. And the reason why I feel we have been successful is because there is a consumer out there who now prioritizes not only today's performance, but tomorrow's future health more than they ever have, ever. And whether they are staying in a luxury hotel or buying luxury goods or trying to be a good mum or trying to be a good father, that is their right up at the top of the hierarchy of the things that are going to decide whether they purchase something or decide whether they come back to something is their, I said future health, it's been branded as longevity now, but health and longevity are key drivers to the whole of the luxury world. And actually not just the luxury world, the whole of the world. I think people post-COVID woke up to how important it was to protect what was coming next and not wait for bad things to happen before they did anything about their health, but to be proactive about it. And so the 3 pillars of movement, recovery and nutrition can be the 3 things that you have control over as an individual or as a leader, and those can be tools that you can use to help your performance today and your health tomorrow.
We have been talking a lot about luxury, or we have mentioned that word a lot of times today, and I like to distinguish, let's say, tangible luxury, which is what you said about like luxury goods and being in a nice environment that we're also going to talk a little bit more about later. And then we have this intangible luxury, which is a way of being. So if we could just take a look at, let's say, the intangible luxury from the point of Pillar Wellbeing, how would you define it?
That's a great question. We're 5.5 years old now as a business, which is quite scary to mention because time has flown so quick. And, I didn't come from a world of business, but I spent so much time around amazing businessmen and women that inspired me into entrepreneurship. And we started our fundraising journey. And I built an investment deck with our branding as it was then on the front cover. And it said, Pillar, wellness is the new luxury. And that was my sort of very proud flagship statement, and actually it's really stood the test of time, that wellness is the new luxury, and it is worn as a badge of honor by many people who can have anything they want in the world, and what do they desire? Potentially more than they desire a watch or a car or a handbag. They desire to look and feel at their very best, and that is how well-being is being worn. And so I like the way you say untangible, because there's different metrics you can use to quantify almost everything, but it's quite difficult for me to put a measurement of how good you feel today. I don't feel 1 good today and 8 good tomorrow and a bit hungover, so I feel negative 1 good the next day. So it is a very subjective and very personal thing. And I've said this before, but I think the ultimate measure of one's well-being is happiness. How often are you happy? You can't be happy all the time, obviously. There's peaks and troughs in life, but I think wellness shouldn't come at the expense of your happiness. I know some pretty fit, pretty unhappy people because they live a life that isn't necessarily fulfilling. So intangible luxury, I think feeling well, feeling happy, and maybe overall feeling fulfilled are 3 things that would help me define whether I thought you were well or not. It doesn't care. In fact, it doesn't matter if I think you're well. You need to think you're well. And I think it is a brilliant type of luxury because it's not one that is blingy or flashy or showy. It's one that you carry within you, and I think that is that's a great thing.
Recently, I have been to the Happiness Museum in Copenhagen. I hope that Danish people who watch this are not going to to take this, because I don't know how the word is exactly pronounced. I think it's pronounced hygge, which...
That sounded like I'm never going to attempt to pronounce anything in any of the Scandinavian languages. My pronunciation
I tried.
will be
I've been
bad.
practicing.
No, that was good. I'll give you 10 out of 10.
But basically, thank you. But basically, it is about the happiness and what brings us happiness. And there has been, I have had a lot of insights there, but one of the biggest ones was that when we reach a certain level of income, that after that, it is not money or anything that it's tangible that makes us happy. It is wellness, it is connection that we have with other people, it is the community where we live in, the relationships we have there. which again, I know that also environment plays a big role in Pillar Wellbeing. So can you shed, and community as well. So can you share a little bit more with us when it comes to, well, community and environment, or environment and community as a part of the concept?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpick there. I think, there's a huge amount that we can learn. We have Danish nurseries in the UK, that have flipped traditional ways of thinking about education from a British perspective on their head. Kids are not sitting behind chairs writing numbers. They're in the woods playing with things and exploring and being tactile with their physical environment and learning through play. And I think that is a really core fundamental of what it is to grow up happy. So, excuse me, I think the Danish have done a brilliant job of that. And I had no idea that the Museum of Happiness existed, but it doesn't surprise me that it's situated where it is. The fundamental core pillars that we identified, in year one, day one of movement, recovery and nutrition, we've kind of expanded out to say that the physical built environment, your community and your mindset also hugely contribute to your overall well-being. Brilliant work done by Dan Buettner and the team at Blue Zones, understanding where people live the longest and happiest lives. And really, community and purpose were the key drivers behind whether you lived a long time, but not lived just a long time, whether you lived a long time and you were happy and you're engaged. And I think that the purpose piece is huge. I think we have changed the way we work, we've changed the way we do lots of different things, and communities have become quite fragmented, and fitness and well-being, especially for the generation below me, have become this amazing sort of common thread that are bound people together. I think the statistic is post-COVID in the UK, there's now over 2,500 new run clubs have come around for people to come together to do something good for them, but more importantly to interact with other people who think like them and have the same struggles and life view as they do. Running is a conduit to that. I think that's brilliant. In terms of how design influences well-being, the room that we're in is our physiology is reacting to this space. It's reacting to the table, it's reacting to the sound, it's reacting to the light. I'm reacting with you. There are new and exciting ways to ergonomically design spaces to positively impact our physiology. A bedroom, for example, should be cool, it should be dark, it should be quiet. There are different ways that I can design like that, but I want it to be beautiful. I want the aesthetic to be nice. I want things to be convenient. I want the texture and the materiality to not jar with my physiology. And, we've done a lot about the physical design of spaces. We're launching a branded residential product which has been wholly designed around how your physiology interacts with your environment, and it's really important. We've done some great work with some real estate developers in London, US real estate developer Hines and Foster and Partners, who you'll know, big architectural practice, on designing London's healthiest place to live and work. It's called The Round. A couple of $1 billion piece of real estate. I say that casually, a couple of $1 billion, but it's it's a huge piece of real estate anchored in health, and I think that's a fantastic tribute to them as forward-thinking developers, but also a reaction to what the market is asking for. I love design and I love things that are beautiful, and I like luxury, but I like a kind of modern luxury, and I think it's modern luxury's job to make you feel good. And I think the things that make us feel good have changed a little bit. I don't want to feel hungover, I want to feel good. And I like that. And I think that the challenge that we're putting into the market is things that have had your health in mind when they've been designed look too clinical, and they can feel a bit like a hospital, and that's not what we're after. And the things that have only been designed to be beautiful have never considered my health. So I want to consider how it looks, how it makes you feel, how functional it is, and how good it is for you. And I think the combination of those elements mean you can create something really special. But then we must not forget, how are you interacted with in that space? What are the services you get? What are the interactions with other members or guests or the people who are there to serve and facilitate you. Build a beautiful space, but if the service doesn't match it, then, you know, I'm speaking to the choir here because I'm in La Roche, but I think that is another key fundamental element that we'll bring to the table.
And speaking about the table, so we mentioned a little bit about how our environment influences us, how our mindset influences us as well, fitness. What I would like also to talk with you about is nutrition. And recently I read a sentence that says that we have our primary food, which is our thoughts, and then the secondary is the food we eat. How would you reflect on that, and to what degree do you think that, like, do you agree with this sentence that, like, our primary food is our thoughts and, like, what we feed ourselves with, or and that the food is the secondary one?
I hadn't heard it described like that before, but I think I would combine thoughts with things that we visually and emotionally consume, you know, the content that we consume. You know, it's not surprising to me, although it is quite sad to me, that we've seen this massive rise in you know, anxiety and stress and depressive type disorders, if that's the right word, in the generation below me. I'm 43, and I wasn't a teenager constantly consuming things that could have made me feel anxious or stressed or upset in some of the things that we're seeing going on in the world at the moment. So I think that's almost become the primary fuel that I feed myself. It is quite scary that the algorithm is now responsible for my primary intake of sort of cognitive load, you know. I'm lying in bed watching something terrible happen in a war-torn space miles away from me that I can't really do anything about just before I go to bed. It's not surprising that I potentially, you know, might not feel great when I wake up in the morning. Now, I think how you dwell on that, how you let that marinate, how consciously connected you are is really important. But I also think it is really important for us to be able to find not positive spin, that's the wrong word, but for us to be able to have a mindset of not of constant negativity. You know, to be happy and successful and perform at a good level, you have to be incredibly resilient and incredibly you have to take good from bad and challenging situations, and I think that is vitally important. And the second part that you mentioned is, yes, of course, you know, we are what we eat. We are also what we think and what we do. I am sitting here as an accumulation of the things that I do most consistently, whether that's the people I speak to, the food I eat, the amount of exercise I do, my career aspirations, my mentors, my children, my wife. What you do most often is what you end up like. And if you spend most of your time eating bad food, not moving, consuming negative content, unfortunately that has a path, and that's not one that I would want us to walk down. I would urge us to walk down a different path.
Yeah. And when it comes to nutrition as a part of Pillar Wellbeing, can you tell us more about that? Like, how is nutrition included into the concept?
Yeah, we have a restaurant concept called Pillar Kitchen, which has been really fun, probably the most challenging part of the business. We have a brilliant culinary director and a guy called Jason Atherton, who's 2 Michelin star chef, 22, 25 restaurants all around the world. And we took this nutritional concept of macronutrients, you know, fats and proteins and carbohydrates, and we took it and worked with chefs who care about flavor. And you don't want nutritionists to cook your food, you want a chef to cook your food because you want it to be delicious. But also, you want there to have been a framework or consideration on your health when you're eating that food, especially if it's food that you're going to eat all day, every day. I think we really wanted to challenge the way that healthy eating is perceived. which is boring. Like eating healthy is boring. You know, you come to any of your, hospitality guys, of which there are many in the place that we are now, and it is about good wine and butter and rich chocolate desserts and something that is exciting. You know, traditional French gastronomy is not, there's a lot of butter in it. And, although they do live a very long time, and cheese and wine and all the good stuff. By the way, I love that stuff too. There is a consumer out there who wants to eat healthily most of the time. And we found that challenging the way that people traditionally view healthy food was what we wanted to do. We didn't want it to be boring. We wanted it to be chef-led with nutritional oversight. And no one wants a nutritionist to cook their dinner or their food. They want a really great chef, and we partnered with a 2 Michelin star chef in Jason Atherton to be our culinary director. We want to create an environment where you can come and have a great breakfast. You can fuel you for your workout that you're about to do or that you've just done. We could have a business lunch there, and I could also want to take my wife for a date in the evening. That was the approach. Now, health food restaurants have really struggled in the evenings, so we flipped it a little bit. We have a wine list. You can come and drink wine. I love wine. I don't think that should be excluded, but you can also have an amazing whole food, organic, locally sourced plate of something delicious with fantastic protein in it, with 5, 6, 7, 8 different colours on the plate that represent a rich and diverse nutrient content. We have a gin and tonic, but you can have 50% ABV, so we have 10% gin that you can put in it. So you're not coming away with a hangover. Maybe you can have a couple and not feel bad. We do low and no, and we can also have kombucha and protein shakes and lots of different things, but all in the same environment. Someone who might be joining us for lunch might not care about anything I've just said. They just want to have a glass of wine and a steak. Great, we're going to sort you out. But you may be intolerant to certain foods. You may be following a certain diet. You may have a certain way that you want to eat, and we want to also facilitate that. I think it also goes back to the mindset of our clients, our members and our customers is one of caring more about that than they ever have before. And I think the modern high performer and the alumni that you've created at La Roche, and actually some of your existing students, we're going to move into a space where there's a lot of demands on them, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. They've got to perform to a good level. They want to put good things into their body, but they have to taste good. And so that's the approach that we've come at it from.
Yeah. I really love the word that you used to describe modern high performers. What are they like? And what a modern high performer would find... I would rephrase it. How would a modern high performer feel good?
I think you've got somebody who by nature is competitive and they want to win in whatever their chosen path is. And I think that they feel good when they feel fit, when they feel healthy, when they feel well nourished, when they feel happy, when they feel like they're fulfilling their potential. And I think as a business, we try and be a conduit to all of those things. As I said before, the modern high performer, if you can put that person into a bracket, also has it is prioritizing future health. They're prioritizing how they're going to feel. If they're 30, how they're going to feel and perform and be when they're 50, 60, 70. You've only got to look at things like the Whoop band, and that is a sleep monitor. That is really a tool for me to manage my daily performance and my future health. That is really important. They're quite data driven, and they like to see data points to act as a barometer as to whether what they're doing is successful or not for them. We talked about the kind of intangible wellness. I feel quite good. It's a bit kind of, I wouldn't say airy-fairy, but it's a bit sort of, subjective. And often they like, I don't want subjective, I want data. I want quantitative data. And I think we do some of that in some of our wellness assessments, some of our fitness product, and we look at having really great metrics that we can track. I love the fact that how much you weigh on the scales isn't the only thing that we measure versus, 15 years ago. How do you feel? We'll jump on the scales and I'll tell you how heavy you are, and that'll be how, rather than how's your sleep, how happy are you, how's your mindset, how's your libido, how are your relationships, how fit do you feel, how strong are you? That's what I care about, because I know all of those things make up how happy and good you'll be at being a person. And I think the modern high performer is trying to squeeze the best out of every element of their life, not just professional, personal, but every other element. And I think that, they are continual self-developers. If there's an opportunity for them to develop a skill and get better at something, they'll grab it with both hands. And fitness and wellness, I think, represents that. How can I get better?
Yeah. And fitness and wellness, as well as everything that you have just mentioned, I would say that a modern high performer really cares, and you also use the word care, or like caring, about all areas of their life. And I don't want to use word balance, because I do not believe in balance, such as like 20% this, 20, so like everything makes 100. But definitely, let's say, this holistic approach to life is something that distinguishes them and differentiates them from maybe previous generations. So the second part of my question would be, how does Pillar Wellbeing help them with achieving that holistic lifestyle?
Yeah, I think that sort of balance became a bit of a joke, didn't it? It's like, I'm going to go to the gym and then I'm going to go out and have 6 pints of beer. That's balance.
Yeah.
But it's not far off. How do we help them? I've got this analogy around stress. We have to become robust, and we have to become capable to deal with stress and pressure if we're going to be a high performer, if we're going to be a leader, especially if we're going to go into almost any walk of life. But, the worlds of business and entrepreneurship require a lot of resilience. I've used this kind of analogy where, I've got a glass in my hand, and this glass can represent my body's ability, or my ability to cope with stress. I'm going to turn the tap on, I'm going to start to fill that glass up, and that water represents the stress. At some point or other, that is going to boil over the top, and it's going to spill, and that could be a breakdown, stress, anxiety, and also that could be something negative, because my body and mind's ability to cope with stress has been reached and breached. It is our job to give you a bigger glass, and our job to expand that capacity to deal with stress. Now, that might come from breath work, it might come from mobility, it might come from doing cardio, it might come from following a hobby, playing music, playing with your kids, cooking. It might come from feeling part of a community. It might come from talking therapies and sharing your emotions. It is our job as a sort of ecosystem around you to say, at Pillar we have a clinical psychologist, unbelievable woman called Vanessa Moulton, ex-British Army. She'd worked with Help the Heroes and Prince Harry and these amazing people who've had to deal with huge amounts of stress. We have a nutritionist, we have a physiotherapist who I'd urge you to go and see, not when you've pulled your hamstring. Let's go and see them before you pull your hamstring. Let's make sure your body is limber and loose and reactive and strong. We have strength and conditioning coaches, we have a run club, we have a community. So all of those things combined help give you a bigger bowl, because the stress isn't going anywhere. Let's be real about what it is to perform at a high level over a long period of time. You have to be able to deal with and cope with those situations and scenarios, both personal and professional. And so I think that a combination of all the things I've just described, and Pillar's job to facilitate you performing at your best is to give you a bigger glass to deal with the stress, which is coming at all of us all the time. And that's how I'd describe it.
I like the metaphor, because the way you described it, the way I perceive it is just, it creates or develops this capacity for being, which leads me to the next question, which is, why Pillar Wellbeing and not Pillar Wellness?
That is a good, that's brilliant. I think and we need, we often talk about the sort of wellness industry as it's poorly understood, and I think your overall well-being has a kind of deeper meaning when it comes to your health. I think wellness is considered to be things like manifesting and journaling and sound bars and things that maybe aren't as rooted in science. I'm not saying those things are ineffective, by the way. I think those things are. Yeah. But I think well-being has a deeper connotation to overall health, both present and future. And we believe quite strongly in promoting things and creating services and products in an environment that have something tangible to them. And I think that the wellness industry is unfortunately becoming full of things that we've called well washing. It's just like, I've seen hotels do it. I've seen a hotel get a normal hotel room, put a Peloton bike in the corner, and call it a wellness suite. Really? is that where we're at? And I think that is a poor attempt. If I was going to create a bedroom and call it a wellness suite, I'd start with the ergonomic design on sleep, and then I'd move, to fitness. There's already a gym downstairs. There's already other spaces where I can engage, as an example. So we believe in well-being. It's not to say that I don't engage in wellness activities, and I don't like the wellness industry. I do, but unfortunately, the wellness industry, as it's currently described, as a nearly $1 trillion industry. 70% of that commercial part of the industry is still made up by beauty products. And I would put a pretty strong challenge that blusher and nail polish, if that's the wellness industry, then we'll stick to well-being.
I agree. As a girl, I agree. Because very often it is associated like, oh, if you do your nails or if you do your hair, oh, that's well. It's like, I think it takes a little bit more of work and dedication and taking care of yourself in many other ways. And
I'm not anti-self-care, by the way. I think you do things that make you feel good. I'm all for that.
Yes.
But I don't believe... But I believe, the reason why we were challenging traditional spa is that we're saying, there's a Swedish massage and then there's a deep tissue sports massage.
Yes.
That's how I would class them, and we're the deep tissue sports massage.
Yeah. Getting to the core.
To the core, solving a problem, getting to the core of it. However, if you're a super busy person and a mum with no time to herself, and you want to go and lie in a jacuzzi and have a massage and get your hair done, you should, because it will make you feel better. But so I'm not anti that.
No, absolutely, because I believe that at different stages of our lives, we all have different ways and forms of feeling better, right? So, speaking of that, if people would like to become a part of this community, what are the ways of doing that?
It is, I think the wellness community, well-being community, health community, biohacking community, fitness community are kind of merging quite deeply into one. I think the fitness community online has just exploded through things like high rocks and ultra marathons, and even just your local park 5K run. It's a great way to go and get out and to meet people. I think the wellness community is fairly new. If you compare it to many other industries, it's a very young industry. With I'm 43. I'm just thinking about how long I've been in the space, and I've been in it longer than most. Was very much an early pioneer of some of the things that we see. I talked to you before about the fact that we were measuring heart rate variability 10, 12 years ago. Now that same software now sits in my Whoop band. And so we were thinking about sleep and stress a long time ago. So it's a kind of long-winded way of me saying, because I've always sort of been part of the community, I wonder how somebody new would break into it. But I don't think people should be... I think for too long, people have felt intimidated by it. gyms, for example, have been quite intimidating places to go. I love the gym. I go to the gym every day. And if you're not like me, you may not feel like that is a place for you. And I think that that should change. So if there is anybody wanting to feel like they want to become part of the wellbeing community, the fitness community, my big urge for you is do it and don't feel intimidated by it. It's not just for people who look great with their shirts off and are super fit. It's for everyone. And I think it is the job of the wellbeing community to make it as accessible a place as we can. I put myself in that bracket, as we can, because often people who could benefit from the gym the most feel a bit embarrassed to go there in the first place. And I don't just mean just the gym. I mean, you know, any space where that people will come together to engage in wellness.
Yeah. Actually, it's so funny that you mentioned gym, because I was the one who was intimidated of gym a month ago.
A month ago,
and
Okay.
I'll explain, because I've never been on my own in a gym, so I always have a personal trainer, but now I have a personal trainer with whom I work online. So I joined this new gym because I love the community around it, and I went there in the morning, and then there was all this equipment and machines, and there was me, and I was looking at them, they were looking at me, and it's like, I don't know how to use this. So I went back home, and then I had to contact my trainers, look, can you explain to me how to use this? But then I also think it is about, again, the client or the customer or the user. So how badly do you want this? And how much of your time and effort are you ready to invest in it? So what is something you're chasing? Because very often our motivation goes either towards something or away from something. And you mentioned, so we are doing things now so that we do not have, so in order to maybe prevent certain things, right? So we have these different sources of motivation, and whatever it is more common to us, the most important thing is to reach that goal. And speaking of goals, of all well-being and wellness and fitness fans and lovers, what are the most common goals that your people from your community have?
The goal that they have when they first come isn't the goal that keeps them there for the full time. And I would say, I would be lying if I said most people starting on a fitness or wellness journey, often it's, I want to lose a bit of weight. Okay, I want to change the way my body looks. I'm a guy, I want bigger arms and I want abs. I'm a girl, I want bigger bum, smaller waist, or I want to lose weight. You know, these are very aesthetic, very sort of surface and superficial goals that, but I would work backwards from that and say, if you want those things, you're going to have to eat properly. You're going to have to train 2, 3, 4 times a week. You're going to have to become part of this community of people. When you go to the class, you're going to meet the same people over again. You're going to have to generate discipline, personal. You're going to have to sleep properly. You're going to have to be very motivated. You're going to have to push yourself to do things that are quite difficult. At times you don't really feel like it. Ultimately, that's going to build grit and resilience. And I would challenge you to do something really different. I would say, you came to me and said, I want to do X, Y, and Z with my body. I would say, I want you to be able to do 3 pull-ups unassisted. I want you to run 5 kilometers in under 25 minutes. I want you to hold a 3-minute plank. I want you to be able to squat your own body weight. And when you can do those things, you'll look how you want to look. But my God, you'll feel incredible. And so I think they come for this more surface level outcome, and they stay for the community and how they feel every day. And that's why we love like physical challenges. You know, we're going to go and we're going to run the Marbella half marathon. We're going to train for it together. Just the process of training, you and I, for that will bond us together. And when we cross the finish line, we're going to feel great. Yeah. And I think that is what keeps people engaged. I also think that, you know, the younger generation, and by that I mean with people from sort of 18 to 40, are finding new and interesting ways to engage with each other, because we're seeing 70% less alcohol consumed, nightclubs not being frequented as much, people wanting to find ways to come together and be part of something that doesn't involve partying. And a lot of that has become wellness focused, whether we're jumping in an ice bath together and having a sauna together, or going for a run together, or challenging ourselves to do physical training sessions together. That's become the new going out.
Yes.
Meet for coffee, go for a run, do a few squats, have a croissant, and go home. And I think that's replaced in many parts going to the pub and having drinks. So I think also, there's a very age-specific reason where some people will come and engage in stuff. And the younger ones are doing it because that's what everyone's doing, and everyone's hanging out in that way. And I think that's really positive.
Yeah. Recently I saw a video on Instagram which says something like, millennials, choose your fighter. And then there is the one that's training for Hyrox.
Yeah.
Then you have somebody like preparing for marathon. Then you have a gym person, right? So like all of a sudden we have started adopting these roles, or several of them. And I always like to say that when it comes to goals, it is not about the goal that you achieve, it's about who you become in the process and how you develop. So how have you developed, you personally, as somebody who stands behind this concept? How has your identity or like your roles have been changing, and who have you become in this journey?
What a great question. That's a pretty deep and existential question, because there's so much has happened to me in the last 20 years. I started off as a PT in a gym and evolved into having amazing clients, and then worked with the Prime Minister for 2 years and founded 4 businesses and grew and failed at stuff and won at stuff, and so became a father and a husband and a founder and an advisor to venture capital funds and lots of other things. But I think overall I have had to, in America they say I had to drink the Kool-Aid. I had to really abide by the things that I was preaching to people for 20 years. This year I've been in Singapore, Bangkok, been in North America, been in UAE 3 or 4 times. I'm now speaking to you in Spain. I live in London. I'm going to Miami next week. I've flown all over the world and had to perform at a high level when I've got there. So I've had to have a strategy for jet lag. I've had to find ways that I don't, keep really connected to my friends and to my family. I had to be very diligent on my wellness routine. I've almost become, one of my clients who I'd coached for all that time. And I've had to become very sort of self-aware and self-reflective. I've had to know, I can feel when I'm on the edge of feeling burnt out. And I think burnout is probably an overused term. But I know when I feel a bit on the edge, and I have to be conscious enough to take my foot off the gas a little bit. Don't get up. If you didn't go to bed early, don't force yourself out of bed at 5 o'clock to go for a run in the dark when you're already exhausted on too many coffees, because I'm less capable of doing that now as a man in his early 40s than I was in my early 20s. So I've definitely become more self-aware. Hope I've become a good leader and a good dad. That probably means more to me than anything is being a good dad. And I've become someone who's able to put things into perspective a lot more. Things that I thought were a complete disaster and we would never get over, we'll always get over them. And nothing gives you perspective like one of the kids jumping on your lap when you get in from a crappy day and giving you a big hug. And hopefully I've matured. By the way, I've got loads more maturing to do, loads more growing and learning to do. So I'm very hungry for what's coming next. Yeah.
And what is coming next? What is, speaking about perspective and the vision for Pillar Wellbeing, and who knows, many maybe other projects in the future. So what is your vision? What is coming next?
For us in our space is really doubling down on the physical built environment. How Pillar Living that we're bringing to market in our branded residential concept can really change and elevate the way that we view the branded residential space. We're doing private wellness clubs with adjacent residential units attached that have had our design features and touch points and brand attached to them, but also an incredible amenity, community facility. I think the way that the world of luxury is heading, that will become more important and more value additive than anything else. For that, we will need a well-trained workforce, so I'll drop that in. I've just been having some brilliant conversations about the way that La Roche can, facilitate that next wave of leadership, and I think it's exciting that that next wave of leadership, under the tutelage of people like yourself, will come through more conscious, more connected, more health-focused, more leading from the front, more aware and capable and able to look after themselves, apply their own gas mask before other people's, or their own life jacket. And then from a business perspective, as I said, huge opportunities in the UAE, Saudi, some stuff happening in America, which is really exciting for us. Personally, I think my next evolution, I've had this brilliant career as a trainer and a coach, and I'm now having a successful one as an entrepreneur. And I think, I'm excited as to where that will go and where that will head. I'd be lying if I said I knew. If you'd have asked me 10 years ago, I wouldn't have said I'd be sitting here talking to you. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I hope in 10 years' time I am sitting back here talking to you about some of the successes that we had. And then from an industry perspective, I think the wellbeing in the industry is a super exciting place to be. We were early pioneers in marrying hospitality and wellness. And I think the way that wellness and wellbeing has infiltrated every industry, from tech to FMCG to consumer and service-based goods, hospitality, it's weaving its web into everything because everybody cares about it more than they ever have. Everyone's willing to pay for it more than they ever have. And it is not just a nice value add at the end of a project that might squeeze some more money out of it. It has to be infused into the DNA of what people are thinking about from the very start. So I will double down and finish by saying the tagline of wellness is the new luxury has stood the test of time, and I think will continue to stand the test of time.
Well, thank you for everything that you shared with us here, and for all the wisdom and inspiration, I would say, you brought. You said that you still have a long way to go and to develop, but I think we all do, and I think we're right where we need to be. So thank you once again.
Thank you very much.
I'm a selfish kind of person with a soul trying to fly. I aim to break the laws of nature and learn to love before I die.